Friday edition of Sidelines, June 21st, 2024. For people like my dad who were out there going, what day is it? What's the time? Well, it's 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern. So, hey, great show on Football Fridays Roundtable. Frank Duffy, Doug Dean joining us, Dave Tompkins still on special assignment in Eastern Slobovia, working on a special project. We miss him. We're ready to get him back. But we've also got a special guest at half past the hour, Coach Tyler Siskey. Really cool story. Played his football at Auburn and Troy, has coached with Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss, Nick Saban at Alabama, knows Billy Napier quite well. I'll tell you what, he spoke last week at the Touchdown Club in Memphis. One of the better speakers I've heard. Just straight shooter, knows what he's talking about, understands what's going on in college football today, from the past, the present, and the future. Smash subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner. Allow notifications on your Android and iPhone. Tell everybody to subscribe. We are so blessed to have the best viewers and sponsors out there. So get pen and paper handy, because we're coming at you right now.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, guys. Frank, I got to. Is that the coat of arms for the Duffy family in the background? Because that is a cool tapestry.
That is from the Queen of England, and I do not want any trouble with them. My Irish people are just staying out of that.
Yeah, we bow to no one.
You get in a tussle with them, and all of a sudden they show up at legions on your doorstep. So no, I'm good.
That's right, Doug Dean.
I just got a good antique sale. That's all.
It looks good. Doug Dean, welcome aboard. I love the shirt. I got to tell you, man, Doug's. And you both on the BOA, and I love what Doug, he goes out yesterday. He's got Reggie Torber lined up for us next Friday from Baton Rouge, played at Auburn, played for the Giants. I mean, just awesome guest. You talk about a student athlete who goes to college and then plays in the NFL and comes back. It's an incredible story. Thank you, Doug. And also, we're going to have another one talking some basketball here soon. Birmingham last night was kind of the center of the baseball universe with the game between the Cardinals and the Giants, and remembering Willie Mays. And man, I got to ask you, Doug, as a kid, Willie's from Westfield, which is 11 miles from that stadium. That was my phone. Sorry about that. I just thought that was interesting that Monday night they announced that Willie would not be able to attend the game, and then he died the next day at 93. But who didn't grow up wanting to be Willie Mays?
That was eerie, the timing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all had a glove when we were a kid, and we wanted to make the catch like he made, I think, in 1954. And remember what his quote was? I wasn't worried about making the catch. I was worried about getting the ball back to second, because if I didn't, that guy on second was going to score.
Well, and the guys that play, first of all, let me backstop you on your upcoming basketball guest, Steve Mitchell. I got lucky at Fish Market in downtown Birmingham yesterday. I like to belly up to the bar. Don't worry, in case my fellow employees are watching, I don't order alcohol at lunch. The bar, it's just more fun to me to sit at the bar, because you're going to meet somebody, I've never met a stranger, but I just happened to get lucky to sit next to the great Steve Mitchell, who played guard for Coach Bartow. Yeah. And what was so fun about getting to know him, the nicest guy you will ever meet, Rob and Frank. but he was a Memphis product. You can dig up what high school that would have been. Do you know, Rob?
I'm thinking I thought he went to Mitchell or Melrose, but there were so many players from Memphis going down to Birmingham when Bartow's the most loved coach ever at Memphis, and he was only there 4 years.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. He coached at UCLA and became friends with the great John Wooden, probably mentored a little bit. You could do worse than Wooden, couldn't you, as a mentor?
Right.
But Steve Mitchell talked about, he was not on that team. He was a year after Oliver Robinson and those guys in the embryonic phase of UAB basketball. Yep. Where all they do is take down Virginia and Ralph Sampson. Are you kidding? So Bartow could coach. He told me some stories. I'm not going to steal his thunder with Bartow and other stories for when he comes on, but he's doing color analyst work on the Blazer Network. So I think that'll be fun for everyone. We're all increasingly, Frank, since we don't play football at Auburn recently, I think that's about to change. This basketball, and look what Coach Oates is doing in T-Town and what they're doing at Samford, for God's sake, if the referees would do their job. So he will be really fun. You might choose to have him on this fall when we get a little closer to the kickoff of the exhibition season in basketball. But just a tremendous guy, and he knows more. And by the way, his jersey number 14 is hanging in the rafters at Bartow Arena. That's how good Steve Mitchell was. So that'll be fun. Yeah.
Oh,
and as for last night at Rickwood Field, my friend Coke Matthews, who was our chief development officer where I work, where I work at Children's, just a tremendous guy. But Coke took he's a huge baseball freak from his youngest days and his late father. But he took it upon himself to create this Rickwood Historic Society and would do fundraisers. He would bring our executive team out there and others, benefactors, sometime in November, usually Iron Bowl week. It'd have a bunch of hot dogs brought in. And believe it or not, all of us old guys with aching joints would suit up and play base. And he would bring a minor league pitcher in there. And I'll just tell you guys, I bet Frank knows, maybe Rob, a 85-mile-an-hour fastball is impossible if you're not a real player.
Man, your days at high school hitting fastballs when a minor leaguer throws one past you,
And now last night, those guys were finding out that, what do they say, chicks dig the long ball in baseball? I think that was Chipper Jones, but
yes, it was.
Was it Chipper?
It was Glavin and Maddox that did the commercials.
That's right.
Because it was the pitchers, and not used to hitting the long ball. Those are some of the greatest commercials.
Weren't they back when you didn't have to be politically correct? But those hitters last night were finding out that Rickwood Field has some yardage in it.
Yeah. Well, what's cool, I had a client who was pushing 70, and he played in the Fountain of Youth Baseball League into his late 60s. He said, I got out there in one of those games, and some new guy on the other team whizzed a fastball over 70 miles an hour, and I was like, I'm done. I've got my money. I'm out of here. But you know what? Birmingham, there was old Rustwood Park in Memphis, burned to the ground years ago. You think about Rickwood Field. The similarities between Birmingham and Memphis are really, really they're eerily similar. But that fish market you're talking to, the downtown Birmingham restaurants, God bless. And then I tell you, Bricktop out on 280 in Mountain Brook for seafood. Maury Gaston took me out there. Oh my God! But the Greek restaurants, Doug, they're phenomenal.
Oh, the Birmingham restaurant food and wine scene is the heart and soul of it. Is the heritage of the Greeks and others, certainly Italians. But you knew Connie Kanakis, didn't you, Rob?
I did not. I heard his name forever.
Oh my God!
Pat Sullivan and him were tight.
He and John Ed Willoughby, the radio legend, and Doug Layton, and all those guys. But Connie Kanakis owned 3 or 4 outstanding restaurants over the years. So that's the heritage of Birmingham. But it was a very proud moment for history, negative part of the history, hurtful part of the history, all aside. It was beautiful that Rickwood Field could be preserved and celebrated for the historic meaning of it. And I really deeply appreciate MLB for bringing their show here.
Well, oldest ballpark in America. That's significant right there.
Well, it's fascinating, of course, with that night, and then going to the Field of Dreams in Iowa. I guess that was a couple of seasons ago. It's really interesting to be able to take these little vignettes of history and then play a real Major League Baseball game in it. It's something that you really can't do in the other major sports. And because, you wouldn't have the ability, the size wise to do it. But for baseball to go back in time to these iconic stadiums, and look, we're fortunate still today to have Fenway Park and Wrigley Field. That would never happen in other sports. I mean, the Boston Garden for basketball was probably the last great old arena that we had. But for baseball, it just goes hand in hand with history, and I'm interested to see where they might go next, right? There's so many of these stadiums now that have been refurbished enough to have minor league teams in them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It really is.
Well,
yeah. And go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
No. I'm saying both of y'all are hitting on it. You bring these games back because the college game, we're going to get into that in a second before we get into football, is so popular. I think Butch Thompson talks about it every year. 48 last year. I think there were over 50 SEC players on opening day major league rosters. That's why there's this resurgence in baseball. And I'm going to throw this to both of y'all. I've got a bet with somebody that's on the show, Vince Ferrara, the sports animal up in Knoxville, part of the Vol Network baseball, that we surpassed the 3 million viewer mark in one of these championship games between Tennessee and Texas A&M, best 2 out of 3. Agree or disagree? Doug, you're on the clock.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Rob on that one, Frank.
Yeah, I would agree. Look, this is Tennessee's coronation. They've been the top baseball program in college for 4 years now. They haven't been to a final since 1951. This is their year. Look, I went to Hoover for the championship game between LSU and Tennessee.
Yeah.
That Sunday, drove over in the morning. I got my convertible, put the top down. I was there. And let me tell you something. The Vol baseball fans are a passionate group. Look, we pride ourselves on having passionate fans. They were equally as passionate. And look, I saw the weight of the expectations in the Vol fans when we were in that 9th inning and LSU was down by 3 runs and we made a charge back and had the tying run on second with only 1 out. They were gripping. I can't imagine what their feelings are. And look, I experienced it from Omaha last year, that when you get into that best 2 out of 3 and it's with your kissing cousin from the SEC, so you know them really well. Pride is on the line. I mean, it'd be one thing to play a team from out of your conference, but when you're playing that best 2 out of 3 against a conference foe, man, it's tight. And tomorrow night's game is pivotal. Getting that first game is why I think we beat Florida last year, because you've got that wiggle room of the second game. And look, even if they score 25 runs, great, go ahead and score them, run around the bases, get tired, because we got you on Monday. But I think Tennessee is the team to beat. My dark horse was Florida, but Florida had to win 2 games in 1 day, and that is difficult to do.
Brutal.
A&M, was able to beat them, but I think in this 2 out of 3, it's Tennessee's time. It just is.
Yeah, hard. Although, if it were a 7-game series, the best team almost always wins, don't they?
Yeah, I agree.
Best of 3, dangerous, man.
That's right. No,
really dangerous.
Because if the Aggies, and my God, please keep the lunatics out of Schwab Field, please.
Yeah.
Wherever those 2 guys are, they should never be able to darken another SEC venue ever again. That was reprehensible what happened that night in the Florida dugout. Horrible. Tonight, tomorrow night, I keep saying tonight, but tomorrow night's game, if Texas A&M can sneak in and get that win, then the pressure really is
Shifts
on Tennessee.
Shifts to the balls.
And we've seen, I watched every pitch of LSU in the regional this year, and when you got to go on a run and your back is against the wall, it can be done. We did it last year against Wake Forest. Yeah. But it's just so hard to come, when you're down in that 2 out of 3 or you're in a loser's bracket, man, it's hard to come out. It really is. So
really hard.
Tomorrow night's game is very pivotal.
Duff, you're going to love this quick take. You're really going to love this because it will bring back fond memories for you. But for some reason yesterday, my mind meandered back to the halcyon days of one Lester Miles at LSU. And I said, now I ask both of you, and I ask your listeners, who across the coaching fraternity in the SEC or anywhere for that matter, who is going to step into the breach of idiocy of quotes where that massive void was left by Les Miles? For example, quote, Louisiana has a heritage of great players that play their high school football within the boundaries of Louisiana.
I have the want to have the chest to be able to stop.
I have a damn strong team. Or on Columbus Day. Good afternoon. I just want to remind everyone that it's Columbus Day. That all of you who know Italians, like Italians, or the people who might venture onto a ship and travel to explore and find new lands. This is your day. It's not St. Patty's Day. That's a different day entirely.
Well, we had a mayor in Memphis.
Where are you, Les? The closest we've got is Kiffin, right?
Clearly the grounds crew in Tiger Stadium put pesticide on our turf. No doubt.
Then there's the great quote by Emory Bellard at one time when he was coaching Mississippi State in the early 80s. Football is a game played by football players. Can we quote you on that? No, what he was talking about. You got to be tough.
That's a Yogi Berra-ism. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Les was just nuts. Right?
He had a beautiful mind, as they say.
Here's the thing that irritates me, though. Here's the thing that irritates me about Les, though. Les was the crazy uncle, but he was our crazy uncle.
Yeah.
So you had to put up with him. You had to listen to his stories. You had to have him you'd have to pull his finger at Thanksgiving. He was so eccentric, and that kind of played well in Baton Rouge. It wouldn't have played well in Tuscaloosa. It wouldn't have played well in Lexington. Somehow it played a little bit in Baton Rouge. It also played when, again, we lost our girlfriend. We got a good wife. Though she was sitting there in her curlers and her house dress as we're watching the supermodel walk up and down the catway runways of Milan. But she was our quirky person. But then after the fact, a few of the things that came out, the Darius Geist thing, and then the issue with the undergrads. I mean, when all this came out, my daughter was about to go to LSU as an undergrad. As a dad, I had to put my Tiger fan on the shelf. I was PO'd when I heard that. Right?
As any dad would be.
Yeah, that's not right, And so what we thought was, again, and I'm saying allegedly, what we thought was a good family and man and a good husband. And you could put up with the idiocy of throwing against Auburn with 7 seconds left.
Oh my God! And it working.
You score a touchdown with the clock running out, which makes no sense. Or the debauchery. I was in Vaught Hemingway and almost had a hemorrhage when I was sitting down in the end zone on that long pass and watched us fritter away. Not getting the field goal team on with there was no way it was going to happen. It was just mathematically. And so putting up with him was, and I would always defend him only because he was a good man. And then after the fact to find this, and then now for him to, in a cheesy way, to come out and want to sue LSU over us vacating wins. Frankly, we were doing the honorable thing. We fell on our sword. Okay, we'll vacate those wins. It's just oily. It's just
I had a feeling I could get you fired up, Duff.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and by the way, Les was this close to 3 national championships.
Yes. and if he wouldn't have been such a freaking hardhead and put in Jarrett Lee in the second half, because every one of us sitting in the Superdome realized that Jordan Jefferson was not going to get the team moving that day. Anybody with a brain was sitting in there knew that. And Jarrett Lee, who had a great track record up until, ironically, the Alabama game, the 9-6 game of the century, he would have been the relief pitcher coming in. It would have given us a boost. His arm would have been able to at least stretch Alabama's defense, which, hell, I thought there were 12 up on the line at some points in that game. It just made no sense whatsoever. That's why, and by the way, that's why Bobby Hebert went off on him in the press conference after, because it was such idiocy. And let me tell you, that actually ruined. It's like letting the greyhound catch the rabbit. That ruined the greatest LSU team. I would put that team up against the 2019 team for all across the board talent, because our defense was NFL caliber defense. We didn't have that on the 2019 team. We had opportunistic defense.
Yeah.
So it was.
And LSU fans are, I love it. I got Frank. I want to check his BP right now. Rob, you got a blood pressure monitor.
But I still think of
LSU
Demetrius Byrd. That's the scary part about that.
The LSU fans will go to, and I don't blame them, they'll go to their grave saying they never should have been required to play a rematch with Alabama.
Well, Oklahoma State, first of all, and I don't know, did you see Mike Gundy came out this week and said we were the legitimate national champion of 2011. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? Because if y'all would have gotten in that game, we'd have boat raced them by 35 points. We'd have killed Oklahoma State, right? Them going and losing to Iowa State and Ames, and we were. My kids went to an international competition called Odyssey of the Mind at Iowa State. They shuttle it between Iowa State, Michigan State, and Maryland every year. And just that summer before, we were in Ames, Iowa. Nothing there, really. It's just the stadium pops up, the campus goes around, and none of those there. And I can imagine on that Thursday night the hooting and hollering that was going on when they beat Oklahoma State. Well, that game made us have to play Alabama a second time. And when you beat that Alabama team in Tuscaloosa, in the greatest game I have ever witnessed in my life, the best play of the game was a Brad Wing 73-yard punt that flipped the field, standing in his own end zone, and he put Alabama back on like the 18, 28-yard line. It was every yard on every punt, on every defensive stand, watching Eric Reed, down on the end zone. I've never witnessed a game like that. Alabama couldn't hit a field goal to save their soul. It was the greatest thing. It was wide left, wide right. We hit the game winner in overtime. And I'm telling you, I thought I was done with them. I can still remember sitting in front of the TV when the selection committee came out that Sunday and said the national championship game will be LSU and Alabama. I swear to God, my head just went straight down. I was like,
not good.
Even in our national championship home venue of the Superdome, I knew there was going to be no way we were going to beat Nick Saban twice in the same year. And the very first play from scrimmage on Alabama's part proved me right. Instead of the dive play they were running all day against us in the 9-6 game, McCarron did a waggle, fake to running back, rolled out, bootlegged out, and hit the tight end for 16 yards. I told Ron, I said, get your shit. We're going to be going out of here quick. Because
I agree. Hey, Tyler Siskey, our guest, is in with us. Before we say that, I just want to say, I remember Demetrius Byrd when he made that catch to beat Auburn in 07. I was bringing my son Wilson home from a birthday party. He was in tears. I mean, absolutely tears, because he has grown up from birth going to Auburn games. I was asking my wife, I said, Max was at the beach, my youngest son, when he was 2 months old, and we met in Auburn with my sister and her husband and the kids at the Auburn Hotel just to go through there. That's the way my mother is. She'll go through Auburn just to say she went there. But those games, I will never forget that nightmare of the 07 Auburn game. But bottom line is, guys, this is fun. Tyler Siskey from Anniston, Alabama, went to Walter Welborn or Donahoe?
I did start at Welborn in kindergarten, but I went to Welborn, Anniston, and Donahoe. I went to all three of them. I went to the trifecta.
All right, because I was Sigma Nu at Auburn, had a lot of friends from fraternity brothers from Anniston and Gadsden and Hoax Bluff and those great towns. But you spoke last week to the Touchdown Club in Memphis, and I'm telling you, that's one of the best speeches I've heard. You and Gabe Kuhn, both the panel with Harold Grader. And I want to tell you, first of all, thank you so much for taking time to join us. Your story, this is Doug Dean from Birmingham, Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU, go Tigers, over in you in Atlanta, but you're from New Orleans. But Tyler, this is our Football Fridays Roundtable. We have a lot of fun. We've got 4 shows on this network: SEC Sideline Sports Network, the Buddy Martin Show down in Florida, SECU, which is podcasts about specific things, and then Urban Meyer's Best Football Fridays with Buddy Martin. So, man, have at it, and we're going to start asking some questions, but we want to hear – the world needs to hear your story because, again, it was first-class meeting, one of the best I've ever been to.
So I grew up in Anniston, Alabama. I went to Auburn out of high school. I know I look like I'm 5 years old, but I've been around for a while now. So I was in the late that was in the late 90s. Went there, was there from 96 to 98. Played for a guy named Terry Bowden. You notice I said Terry. I did not say Tuberville. He came in. We didn't work out. Well, I was there for a short while. Didn't work out. I ended up transferring to Troy, which was probably it was different at the time because I grew up an Auburn fan growing up, and I felt and it's very hard to explain to people. But at that moment when Tuberville came in and what happened, it kind of robbed me of my fandom and probably got me prepared for the coaching world, I guess, probably in a weird sense.
The cold, hard world, right?
Yeah, in coaching, I get asked all the time. People know my story. They know I grew up an Auburn fan, and they think they know how big of an Auburn fan I was growing up, and they ask about it, and I could care less. That's where I'm at with anybody, with any team, and I'm sure we'll get into it with guys I've worked with, but my fandom now is kind of where my friends coaching and where they're working. And I pull from my friends because I understand the stress and level involved with coaching. Well, long story short is I go to Troy. Best thing ever happened to me. Larry Blakeney was our coach. He's been like a dad to me all through my career. Every job I ever got early in my career, he helped me get. He taught me the right way to do things, the right way to treat players, the right way to coach. Best thing ever happened to me. And then got me into coaching. I went on with Steve Roberts at Northwestern State. Got on with him. That would have been in 2001. And then stayed with him through Arkansas State. Coached at Arkansas State. Was a high school coach in the state of Alabama for 4 years at St. Paul's Episcopal in Mobile. Then got back into college, went back to Arkansas State as a receivers coach, was there for 4 years. Came to Ole Miss with Hugh Freeze, went to Alabama with Coach Saban, South Alabama with Joey Jones, back to Ole Miss with Matt Luke, and now I'm doing podcasts. So how about that?
Hey, that is a cool story. You coached at St. Paul's down in Mobile. That's a power.
It's a hotbed.
And then you were in the borough for a while, so we know the borough very well, Jonesboro, very well.
Yeah, 7 years in Jonesboro over the years.
Well, Tyler, okay.
Go. Y'all go ahead and start asking.
Well, I was just going to say that when you and Hugh Freeze was at Ole Miss, man, you guys came on the scene like the 7th Marines. I mean, that was one hell of a couple years that you guys had there. Can you speak to the excitement that went on in Oxford with that recruiting class that y'all wound up getting, and the type of play that really was ratcheted up, the Land Sharks, all of that? I mean, that was quite the phenomenon when you guys had it going there.
Yeah, I came with Hugh. I was here with Hugh for the first year, so I didn't get to see I got to see a little bit of the fun, the building process, and I was part of the 2013 class. That was crazy, but
wow.
The crazy thing is it's the SEC, right? It's kind of like we didn't know any better. We were not very good, but we got the kids. It was one of the probably most fun years I've ever had in coaching, even though we were 6-6, or technically 7-6 because we won the bowl game.
Yeah.
But Ole Miss was in a really down place when we got here. They had not won an SEC game in a few years. And the excitement to just get to a bowl game was you would have thought that they had won the SEC title, right? It was just the fans were excited, everybody was all in. It was just a really good time to be in Oxford. It was a really good time to be coaching at Ole Miss because they could see that you were building and all that. Now, flash forward, I come back with when Matt Luke got the head job, and it wasn't the same because, and it's how the SEC is, right? Is when they get it takes a lot of being down. I think Auburn's in a very similar place right now.
Yep.
I agree.
I think it takes a lot of being down before people appreciate the build. I think they don't want to accept, hey, we were just in the Sugar Bowl a few years ago. We have to rebuild now. It takes a while. Once you reach the top, it takes a long time for that expectation to lower a little bit. And I don't even call it expectation. I call it reality, the reality bar. Not the expectation bar, the reality bar. And then you start appreciating, hey, the build, and we're coming back and those things, because it's all cyclical, right? I mean, you're always, especially in this world we're in now, we're in a fundraising contest. So, roster, things have changed. The game has changed. And with the game changing, expectations need to change. You look at, and I know you probably heard earlier, you mentioned Billy, like, Florida hasn't changed their expectations, and they probably need to see where the reality bar is versus where the expectation.
Especially with the schedule they got this year.
That's brutal. We went over it yesterday on our show, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But this is the first year you got 2 more teams in the league, so you got 16 teams in the league. With all that being said, you got 16 teams in the leagues, but you still have an 8-game schedule. So when you're doing it, you don't have divisions. And so when you're doing a schedule like that, there's going to be massive imbalance in the schedule, and people don't realize it. Like everybody's talking about Missouri with their schedule. They could be in a discussion for the playoffs, right? You look at their schedule. We went through it yesterday, go through Florida's schedule and pretend that was Missouri and see what you got their record being. Yeah. And so
4 losses.
Easily. Easy.
Super easy. Like,
yeah.
They 6-6, 7-5, maybe. So there's such a huge imbalance in the schedule this year that I think normally we have chaos at the end of the year. We have chaos talking about who's getting in the SEC championship game out of the divisions, tiebreakers, all that stuff. Somebody's beating somebody. I think your chaos with a 12-team playoff, the chaos that we're going to experience this year in the SEC is I think there's going to end up being probably a 9-3 team that doesn't get in, or even an 8-4 team that does. Obviously, it's not going to get in. That is going to be better.
Oh, no doubt.
Than a 10-2 team.
No doubt.
Yeah. Oh, I fully expect it. Tyler, I think you are uniquely qualified to give us the listeners some color on the following, and it has to do with the Ole Miss Rebels. And you ought to, their fan base. I don't think it's dramatically changed since you spent some time there. Well, with the arrival of Lane Kiffin, probably a few things that maybe expectations and swag changes a little. That would be true wherever Kiffin goes. But I'm fascinated, and I think it's going to be one of the early, if not all season long, stories of college football is how well, under the leadership of Kiffin, because he's got bravado, no doubt about it. How well does the Ole Miss fan base and perhaps the team adapt to having a big target on them? I mean, you always do when you play in the SEC, but what I'm referring to is that they're going to be a dark horse picked. It's to the point I've heard Yancey Porter and all the people that really follow Ole Miss and know the fan base say that it will be a big disappointment if the Rebels, with all the talent they've got, returning quarterback, Kiffin calling the shots offensively. If they don't make the 12-team playoff, it would be considered a disappointment. Tell us what you figure the vibe is in Oxford as they head into a big season.
I think that's accurate. I think it's kind of, they're all in. Okay, they're all in financially from a collective standpoint. They're all in. They've kind of been building for this season. They did a really good job in the portal this past year, and I think where Lane has adjusted from the first year of the portal, he was doing the whole portal king monitor. Like, he was getting a bunch of guys early, but they didn't fit his culture, and then it caused some issues. Caused some issues in the locker room. And the hard part about when you're recruiting out of the portal, right, is it's very important, especially, and Lane has got it figured out, and I think he's done a great job this year. And I think he stayed away from some guys that he probably could have gotten in the portal that did not fit this, but you got to get the right guys. You cannot going into the portal just in nature by itself. And it is what it is. And that's how I am, for better or for worse. I don't care about what other people think of me. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Going into the portal is a selfish act in nature. Okay. It is what
on both parts.
Well, both parts. I mean, well, one of them's a necessity sometimes.
Both parts.
Right. But when you go into the portal, it's what can you do for me? Okay. All right. How much money? And then all of a sudden you're taking this, and I'm not saying everyone that goes in the portal is a selfish person. It's a selfish act. Okay. I'm leaving my team to go get what's good for me. Okay. Yeah. So when you take that action and you try to put that into a team framework, okay, that's a delicate, you're fitting a square peg into a round hole. Okay.
24/7 free agency.
Yeah. But you're putting a selfish act, and I'm not saying I'm not doing all that. I'm just trying to be realistic, and that's what it is. And so if you get if you get a truly selfish person, now I gotta go figure out is this guy going, am I gonna be able to count on him to do his job inside the frame of the teamwork, right? And with Coach Saban, everybody talks about, he's the greatest coach and all this, which he is. The best job that Coach Saban ever did is he took the most high profile, and you get that when you get high profile guys and you're recruiting on an elite level, those kids are selfish by nature, okay? Because it's all about me. And the secret of why Nick Saban won every freaking year at Alabama and won at a high level is he was able to take all these selfish people and turn them into team players.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the trick.
Kirby does a good job of that too at Georgia.
I wonder where he learned, right?
You've got to be a force of nature as a personality, and Saban and Kirby both have that. It seems like they did it with real toughness in convincing the players, you've got to let me coach you hard because you will fulfill your goals, make it to the NFL. And enough of them most every year bought into that.
Yeah, Tyler, let me, before you answer that, say something about one of our sponsors, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Brendan, we've got these hats, and Tyler, they've got the Ole Miss one, they've got the Mississippi State one. I'm sure they're going to do the whole gambit of the SEC. HewlettandDunn.com. They've got over 7,000 pairs of boots out there on the Square, but these are cool hats. They've also got the Ole Miss polos, the Mississippi State polos. They've got it all. And I tell you one thing, Tyler, you're in Oxford now. The expectations, I imagine, for the fan base down there, like Doug and Frank are saying, are off the charts. And I've got some questions I'm going to throw at you from a viewer who is down in Lynette, Alabama, unable to type in the questions on YouTube. Big Alabama fan I've known, great sports writer for the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer for many years. But I'll get to those later. But just had to get that commercial in, so keep going.
Yeah, I need to get a hat for every team in the SEC and just wear it for Team of the Week on the show. I like those. Those are sharp.
That's good. They good idea.
No, there's no question. The expectations in Oxford are playoff or bust, and they're, like I said, they're all in. And this year, and look, they have a friendly schedule for the most part. we kind of went through 8 teams yesterday and went through their schedule and we're talking about some things. And to me, Ole Miss's biggest 3 games, they have a stretch where they play obviously Georgia at home. I don't think anybody's beating Georgia. That's just my opinion. Texas is probably, Georgia and Texas are in a class by themselves, in my opinion, the SEC roster wise. And that's kind of what I do is rosters. And then there's going to be a big, probably about 6 or 7 teams that are going to be fighting for that next level. Right. So Ole Miss has got to play Georgia at home. They got to play Oklahoma at home. They have to go to LSU. Okay. I think 10-2 gets them in. So that's kind of the mark that you got to get to is 10-2 in this league and I think it gets them in. I think they got to win. If they win, in my opinion, I think they're going to win 2 of those 3 games somehow, some way. And then I think they're going to end up. There's going to be a roadblock, a little speed bump along the way because they have to go to South Carolina. They have to go to Florida. And a lot of fans, we like to look at it and we just chalk up these L's and W's, right? Well, I've been to those places. Okay. Those are 2 of the hard. They also have to go to Arkansas, by the way, too, which I can. And there's a lot of play on the road in this league is very difficult. You go to, Tennessee fans can attest to this. Alabama fans can attest to this. A lot of dreams have died in Columbia, South Carolina. Okay?
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Ole Miss had a really, they had a college football playoff type season going, and they went to Gainesville and lost 30-0. Like going to those places are very difficult to play in. And so, it's a tough league. So I think Florida is going to be a good football team. Their record may not indicate it because of the schedule. But nobody's going to want to play Florida this year because you're going to get, they're going to be a good football team. Again, their record's not going to indicate it, but they're not going to be a team that you can't go in there and just chalk up dubs against Florida. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, finish your thought.
No, I said, they have a nightmare of a schedule, and whoever scheduled the Central Florida game as one of their out of conference games, that's not, they got Miami and Central Florida. Yeah. Both at home, but they do have Miami and Central Florida, 2 in-state schools. One of them has always been, now a quote unquote level down, and now they're in the Big 12. And so, that was probably not the greatest scheduling there for Mount Capitol.
Good seg back in. I'm fascinated with the schedule this year. You add Texas and Oklahoma. One of the storylines is absolutely going to be the acid test that we've all always wondered about. Those 2 proud programs, Blue Blood and then some over the decades, except for the fact that Texas Sarkisian came into Bryant-Denny Stadium against the GOAT last year, early season, and pulled off that monumental win that I think kind of surprised everyone except maybe Sarkisian and a few others in Austin, Texas. But most people would say what we're going to learn this year, Oklahoma and Texas, no disrespect intended, is that it's not easy playing in the gauntlet of the SEC
every week.
Will that be the case? Will Oklahoma and or Texas, because both have high hopes preseason, I would say especially the Longhorns, will they drop a game that's a head scratcher to a team that they'll be maybe favored double digit in? It could happen because we all know that, when you have to play, Oklahoma comes to Jordan-Hare Stadium September 28th, an afternoon game, and they may win that one, but it's going to be a physical game. And that's not a process of scheduling and degree of difficulty week in, week out that arguably the Sooners have been prepared for coming from the league they are. And people want to talk about the Big 12 and be high on it. That's fine. I just think that will be an interesting storyline. And if you wonder how weird the scheduling was now that we're 16 and there are no divisions, I'll give you 2 exhibits. Exhibit A, in the past, tell me if I'm wrong, Duff, the SEC never would have asked the Crimson Tide to go to Norman, Oklahoma 7 days before they play the damn Iron Bowl. Wouldn't have happened. No. One way or the other would not have happened, but they ran out of options. And then, and maybe I'm being unfair to the schedulers, they also, some AD at Auburn would have screamed loud enough or gotten Jimmy Rain to exert some influence to say, how in the hell does Auburn have 0 home games the month of October. It's just,
Yeah, for the Bama game, they somehow misspelled UT Martin, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I don't know how they misspelled it, but they did.
you got
Tyler-
to play them all anyway. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, Tyler, that's a lot of good points. And after that, if you could talk about, Billy Napier. Well, you know him, and we had a lot of Florida fans. I'm on the Buddy Martin show down in Ocala and Panama City and Gainesville every week, sometimes twice. And a lot of people asking about, Billy Napier. This is his third year. Nobody knows him like you do. You know the pressure he's under, but kind of after you respond to what Doug said, if you could do that, because I've got a lot of people texting me about Billy Napier. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're good. So first part with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, I think fans in general, and I kind of have a cheat code because I've been doing it for a long time. I think fans in general are hesitant to change, right? And I just was talking to a guy a little while ago about Alabama, right? I think there's been this traditional, and I've been part of it. I'm hand raised guy here. This traditional SEC elitist mindset, right? Like, hey, you've played there, but you haven't played in the SEC. The game has changed. The game has changed. And what I mean by the game has changed is why was the SEC so dominant for so long was because before the portal, you were all the best players came to the SEC. And then they were backups and they were 2s and 3s. And you had this massive amount of depth in the SEC. And so when you start running the gamut of the schedule, the third guy in at left tackle could probably start at at every other school. Well, now when the portal came, those kids aren't sitting anymore; they're leaving, and so the depth advantage that the SEC has had as the portal has started has shrunk. What happened in the playoffs last year, guys?
Michigan beats Alabama.
Yeah,
Texas did what to Alabama?
Beat Alabama.
They took the bad bear, and all of a sudden the depth left. Now I will tell you this: Texas is an extremely deep team. Okay, Texas is extremely deep. Why are they extremely deep? Because they have good funds and they can pay the guys to be deep.
Sure.
Guess who else is deep? Georgia. All right. Why is Georgia deep? Because they have deep pockets. All right. They can go create the depth. Right. And so it's about depth. I think one thing that one of the coolest things that we did when I was at Alabama was coach right before we started camp. We had 120 kids on the team, and he would say, I don't care what position they play, rank the best football players 1 to 120 on this football team. And we all did it as an exercise, right? And so we would get in, we would turn it into Joe Panunzio was our ops guy. We'd turn it into him, and he'd make it like a sheet of rank the players 1 through 120. And the point that he made, we'd get in there, and he wanted to look to see how good the players were from 41 to 65. Okay? Yeah. Because how good the players are from 41 to 65 will tell you how good of a football team they're going to have.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, that's why if you watch, group of 5 is when they go like even the group of 5, if you go 11 on 11, there's going to be some group of 5 teams that can give people issues. It's when you start getting it because they can't play every snap. And so, I used to laugh. I always joke when you watch a high school game, you see a kid, well, how many, they play every snap. And some of them play special teams, some play both sides.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, coach, I don't understand why I'm only playing 30 plays a game because I played 120 in high school. I said, because you loaf for 110 of those 120 in high school. They loaf, they take plays off. You can't afford to do that. So you got to have, you go 30 full speed snaps in the SEC, you've had a day. It's a long day. And, so the depth wise, Texas is going to be more than fine. Texas is on the elite level. I think Texas, if I had to just guarantee 2 teams in the league that's going to be in, Georgia and Texas are going to be in the playoff. They're too good. There's no way that they go 9-3. I think it would be a massive, something that went terribly wrong for either one of those 2 teams not to be in the playoff. Okay. Oklahoma coming into the league. Oklahoma is in, year 3 of a rebuild. And they lost a lot of guys because of the whole portal stuff when Lincoln left, and they did a whole culture change because it's not both guys are great coaches, but one likes it this way, one likes it that way with Lincoln and Venables. And not shockingly, Oklahoma is going to be really, really, really good on defense. Like I think they're going to be top 2 or 3 in the league in defense. That kind of talent. And then you got a young quarterback that made 1 start as a freshman last year in the bowl game with Jackson Arnold. The kid is unbelievably talented. So they're going to be able to win games that people, because defense is going to keep them in the game enough to help Jackson out until he gets his feet wet. Oklahoma's going to be a good football team. So with all that being said, I think that it's easier. I guess to answer your question, Doug, is I think it's going to be a little bit easier transition in 2024 than it would have been in 2019.
Yeah,
I think you make a great point. We do. I couldn't agree more, and hopefully with some humility as an SEC fan that we probably, and Coach Saban's partly to blame by just winning all the time, and Kirby in his own right, Auburn 1 year, but we have been, I guess, programmed to think that we're invincible. But the advent of NIL, especially. If you want, you don't have to be a blue blood. I was talking on a previous show. If you got the money and you got the commitment of the leadership and you hire the right coaches, you can very quickly be competitive at a high level.
The other thing, real quick, and I'll get to what Rob said. The other thing that people forget, this is why I try to live in reality. And a lot of SEC, and I love the fandom, right? That's why I'm doing a show. I mean, the fandom it's big time, right? But we quickly forget. Do you know the last 2 teams that came in the SEC? Do you know who they were?
Missouri and A&M.
Do you know what Missouri did their first 2 years in the league?
Got Atlanta.
Twice.
So, we forget that, that the last time we added, in the era that was hard to do, right? Oh, you're going to the SEC. Well,
got their
Atlanta twice in a row the first 2 years. So
got their asses handed to them, but that's forgivable against Cam Newton.
Right. I mean,
I'm sorry, Nick Marshall. 2013 was Marshall.
Well, I mean, look, when was we're sitting here and Missouri got in their first 2 years. There are teams in this league that still haven't been in the SEC championship game, and they've been in the SEC for 100 years.
I
will never forget my most in a moment he could not have enjoyed, but Gary Pinkel, what a great coach. In the post game after dealing with that Gus Malzahn offense with Trey Mason and all the running they did with about 5 plays in the playbook, somebody was asking Pinkel, well, how would you stop this offense? And he started trying to answer. He said, you know what? I'm the wrong guy to ask, as you saw out there. You need to ask someone else how to stop this offense.
I miss him, Tyler. He was a hell of a coach.
Yeah, no,
yes, he was.
He was a great coach, and Barry Odom is too. And it's just that's the fandom part, right? Now we'll kind of lead that into what you were asking, Rob. Is I think that we have, as we live in a society, and everything we do now, right? Everything we do in our society is an instant gratification. Okay.
Yeah.
There is no more patience anymore. It was ironic. I always joke. I did when I was a GA in 2000, I did my dissertation on, that's how I got because I was like, he said I could do it anything I wanted to do it on. And I did it on the alarming trend of time frames for college coaches. And at that time, part of one of the examples I always like to use is Frank Beamer. Frank Beamer, his 6th year, he went 2-8.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
He never had a winning record. He'd been we wouldn't have had Frank Beamer. I did this on our show a few weeks ago. I was going through all the coaches. In today's world, Nick Saban would have been fired at Michigan State.
Wow.
He never would have been at LSU. You're exactly right.
We might not have ever found out his greatness.
Yeah, Mac Brown. Mac Brown didn't have a winning record until his 7th year as a head coach. He got the North Carolina job after going 6-6 at Tulane. It's there's a lot of, and he went 1 for 2, 1 and 2-9 or something his first 2 years in North Carolina. I mean, it's just so many examples. There's no patience. And talking about Florida, Florida is historically, really since Steve Spurrier left, I guess is probably the right term for that. They've been historically impatient with coaches. They fired McElwain in the middle of the year after he had gone to the SEC championship game 2 years in a row. Dan Mullen had a great run and then has one, middle of his next year, he's gone. And, they're historically not very patient since Steve Spurrier left. Okay. Yeah. And hell, they were impatient with Steve at the end too. Right. And then and we can talk about, everybody's like, oh, well, you're forgetting about Urban Meyer. Well, it was funny to me. I'm just saying it was funny to me that there was a health issue in the middle of a bad year.
Yeah, correct.
Because he was like Lazarus. He came up and he was full of Ohio State. And so for me, I don't know. I'm a huge Billy fan. I will admit I'm biased. Billy's a hell of a coach. I think he's doing it the right way. And he's gonna. It's tough, man. It's in the SEC. The fan base is brutal. They want to win every game. They are going to be better. They are going in the right direction.
He showed he's a good coach. He won in Lafayette. He's a damn good coach.
That's the thing, right? Like it's hard to explain, but like in coaching, man, when you come across people, and there's some people that get jobs, you're like, like I don't know. I know the other side of it. I see the behind the scenes. I know how organized he is. I know how much, what kind of, the ball coach he is. I know the teacher he is. I know the mentor he is. I know the roster builder he is. He is doing it the right way. If Florida, and now with all that being said, I know we're talking about this hot seat and all this stuff. I'm just letting y'all know with this house settlement that's coming up and this new $20 million bill that the athletic departments are about to get hit with, $20 million plus that they're about to get hit with, there's going to be some patient ADs coming, okay? Because you're not going to be in the framework to go pay all these huge buyouts. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard enough to go pay a coach's buyout. That's already a stress enough on the athletic department. Now turn around and go add another 20 to it.
The Jimbo buyout's going to be a cautionary tale.
Oh, Tyler,
if this was like coming into next year, and like if last year was this year, coming up year, Jimbo wouldn't be in danger. You couldn't go do that. Even at Texas A&M, that's just you're talking about $115 million that you got to come up with. And it's a ridiculous amount of money. But anyway, long story short is I think Florida's going to be really good. I do. And the schedule, but like they open the season. I was talking about this yesterday. The most important game from Florida is game 1 against Miami, right? Because Mario,
you can't drop that one.
Yeah, Mario's a good friend of mine too, right? And he's in a similar situation that Billy's in. Okay, you're like, hey, look, you've been here 3 years, and they've invested, and they got Cam Ward, who I think is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, that transferred from Wazoo, and they're going to be a good team, and they're going to be I think they are a threat to be in the college football playoff because I think they are a threat to the ACC to win the ACC. They are that talented.
Easier
and
path,
so the loser of that game's fan base is going to be all over.
Tyler, a slightly personal note. My son-in-law, a guy named Kyle Odell, is a proud Bama grad, had the good fortune, and he earned it, I'm sure, to be in the recruiting operation as a junior in college for Coach Saban. So, and then he went on from there. He was with the 49ers, had a territory to scout college players they were considering drafting. So I need to connect you two guys. You'd like Kyle.
Kyle worked for me. I know Kyle.
Oh,
small world.
Name dropper here. That's great. I won't even ask you to give me any dirt. I love the guy too much.
Yeah, no, he's great. Yeah, I know him very well. Yeah,
fantastic. And he played at Oxford High, by the way.
Yes, good dude. Great. It's what I keep calling them kids. They're not kids anymore because it's a long time ago. That's my. If I have a bad habit, I will call. I still picture people from when I met them, or like all my old players is like, man, he's a great kid. And I look at him, man, he's 40 years old now. I was like,
well, Tyler, I taught my daughters to pick well, Tyler.
Yeah.
He's great.
Tyler,
he's great.
I do the same thing. I mean, my kids are 24 to 35. I still call them kids. They're men. I mean, but I'm with you. And you're also, when I meet you, you stay that age for the rest of your life. I may have met you when you're 30. It could be like my dad. I met him. He was 35 when I was born. He's 95 now. So, I mean, he's watching this show.
And that Tyler knows him doesn't surprise me because Doug Dean hit the son-in-law lottery.
Yes, he did.
No, there's no doubt.
Doug is solid. Here's a question from Ed Hall, a viewer down in Lynette, Alabama. He's an Alabama grad, great writer, great friend. thought for today's conversation, I'm going to throw this at you, Tyler.
Yep.
Lane Kiffin has been a big player in the portal and is expected to have a really good team. If Ole Miss doesn't win the conference or make the playoffs, will the pressure start building on him? That's question one. Okay. Number two, Jackie Sherrill was on the show with us a couple of weeks ago and hopefully coming on soon with Barry Switzer. We're trying to make that happen. There'll be some stories told on that one. Said Jackie Sherrill made a living from bringing in junior college players at Mississippi State until they had a couple of bad recruiting years. And then, he left coaching. And he is so incredible as a guest because he's been at the highest and every point. Is Kiffin playing an updated version of that recruiting game? I mean, one bad year and things could unravel quickly. Just your thoughts on him, because again, when you talk about these coaches, and you told the story, if you would, about Billy Napier, kind of some Saban stories, what it was like working with him too, after you addressed these, because people need to get inside and realize, I think what you said is so true. Doing this show, yeah, I'm an Auburn grad, but I get excited about all these fan bases. I've learned more about Florida and Ole Miss and
you better,
Carolina,
or the show crumbles if you don't.
Yeah, and Tyler, you got to start coming on with us more regularly, because we'll help you with
Absolutely.
whatever you're doing. But I cannot tell you how much we appreciate you taking time to share with us. It means a lot to us.
The first part about Lane, is he going to be under pressure if they don't do that? No.
No way.
He can do no wrong right now. I mean, it would take. It's not going to happen. I mean, I think the guy could go 2-9 or 2-10, and there wouldn't be pressure to get rid of him or anything. No, he's not even.
He's made him relevant. He's made him relevant.
He may be the safest coach in America as far as it's concerned on that.
And that's because, let me pay Ole Miss a compliment. They're smart enough. Auburn has demonstrated its stupidity some years, thinking that, there's always a great coach. We're Auburn. We can hire an elite coach. Ole Miss, I think, is smart enough to know who they are, what their opportunity to go get a coach is, and they will ask the question. It's easy to fire a guy and collect the money and pay a buyout. Well, it's not easy depending on the number, but yeah. Who are you going to hire, and is it a lock that you will get the hire done?
Yeah, there is this, again, it's instant gratification, right? I mean, you think that every coach is, nobody hires a coach. Have you ever seen a fan base pissed off about a hire? I mean, every time at first they'll be like, "Oh man, we could have got this." By the press conference, they're like, "We're winning the Natty." Every school.
We thought Carson was going to win big.
Every school. Like, how about this? The funny part was, like, the only time I ever saw like a fan base really mad about a hire, like for an extended amount of time, was Auburn when they hired Gene Chizik, and all he did was win a national championship. So, it's like, fans. It's fandom, right? It's a different thing. That's answer your first question. No, he's not. I mean, he's got more equity here than he can spend for a long time. It would take.
I agree.
It would take multiple years. And on top of that, the contractually they're in too. He's not going anywhere outside of Oxford, Mississippi, unless he wants to. How about that?
Yeah.
All right. Two
Tyler,
is this. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to cover. You've talked about Alabama, or maybe not enough, but I think the listeners value your expertise, your experience at multiple programs. Would you handicap and give us a little better than the Vegas over and under on wins, which is, I guess, 7.5 at Auburn? But what do you think fans realistically should look for, whether you're an Auburn or Alabama fan this season? Kind of a high level from you.
All right, I'm going to try to roll through all these real quick. So finish the Lynette guy's question about the JUCO stuff. The portal is the new JUCO.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and why I say that is you're going to coaches, especially at the higher levels, are going to go sign a portal kid that's been playing at a 4-year school, and it's apples to apples instead of apples to oranges as far as hey, he's a really good player. When he's playing against Coahoma, but now it versus a kid, he's a really good player when he's playing against Georgia. So it's apples to apples. So the portal is the new JUCO. Then going into Auburn, right? So Auburn, we broke down Auburn yesterday. I think the biggest game of the year for Auburn is going to be the 5th, September 28th. It's a big day in the league, by the way.
Yeah.
September 28th, they're at home against Oklahoma. All right. It's going to be Oklahoma's first SEC road game. I think Auburn's going to be 4-0 going into that game.
Wow.
If Auburn, that place will be a zoo.
It will be.
Okay?
Welcome, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
It will be a zoo. If Auburn, now, if you played them in a parking lot in Jonesboro, Oklahoma would probably win that game.
I agree.
Roster-wise.
Yeah.
But look, I've been with Hugh a long time. I'm just telling you, if he gets them off to a 4-0 start, they will be able to damn near run through play dodgeball on an interstate and win. Okay. They will be believing. If they find a way to beat Oklahoma at home before they start that next stretch of crazy games, Auburn, I think if you just put a gun to my head and made me pick, I think Auburn's going to be an 8-4 team. And if they start out 5-0, they got a chance. Now, the portal has, in my opinion, the portal has not helped. Okay, and because of his quarterback situation, I think he would have probably liked to go get another guy, get a difference maker at quarterback, and could have. But by doing that, you're going to run off 3 guys. And so you're going to kill your room by, you're going to win the battle, lose the war kind of deal.
Well, he's going after Juju Lewis anyway. May have a shot at that number 1 player overall in the nation.
That's going to be who's got the biggest pocketbook. I mean, I think we're all. Yeah, I mean, sure, they're in the mix. They're going to be able to. Hey, they're going to be able to be in the final bid. How about that? Yeah,
you're gonna have to sell a lot of Yellowwood lumber.
I mean, you're going to have
Tyler,
everybody. That kid's special. It'll be whoever comes up with the nicest pack. Like if the kids won't want to play in the SEC, right? So it's going to be an SEC battle. If you're the kid, he's in Carrollton, Georgia, right? So
yeah,
he's pretty close to both. So he'll go, and if Georgia and Auburn are getting a bidding war, I mean, I don't think if it comes down to here's how recruiting is now. If the money is the same or around the same, it's going to come down to relationships and all old school recruiting. But if the money's not the same, okay, I mean, guys, sure. I mean, we all grew up, and if you were happy at both, if you had 2 job offers and you would be happy at either one, which one you take?
And his dad is very involved in this recruiting. That's why he doesn't give interviews. But I think that I'm a week away from most likely, and boy, am I going to put myself out on the limb. But nobody wants to hear you talk about it. I think Auburn will win 7 games. I'm picking Auburn with playing the Iron Bowl for a chance to get to 10 wins. And that would take a couple of games that are just shocking upsets that are weird wins. Maybe it's raining real hard and Durkin and Charles Kelly put a defensive plan together, gives them a chance. So, where's the glory in pick? There's a saying, Rob, don't build little plans. It will not be powerful enough to rally people to do great things.
Yeah.
Build a big ass vision and plan. And if you come up a little short, at least your trajectory is where you want it to be.
Doug, I love your optimism. I'll just say that. I love your optimism. If they get to 10 wins, they should rename it Hugh Freeze Stadium.
Well, I didn't say that. I said they'd be playing the Iron Bowl for a chance to. I don't think you win in Bryant-Denny to be a little bit real.
If they go into the Iron Bowl with a chance to get to 10-2 and go to the playoffs, they could lose the game. They should rename the stadium. They should rename the stadium Hugh Freeze Stadium. I'm sorry. Hey, Suge Jordan, I'm sorry, Suge Jordan. I'm sorry. We're going to name this Freeze Hair Stadium.
Fair. Well, you're a little more. You're probably more realistic about what Hugh's got to work with this year. For me, it's all about major upgrade in defensive brain trust with Durkin and Kelly, and also I think Hugh will be. He was miserable last year. People have told me that know him. He's comfortable with Derek Nix coming in, and it's going to be Hugh Freeze. You'll see games where he's in a flow. Y'all know what that is, guys. You just feel it's like when you play golf and you're not thinking. You're just going and making moves, and I can't wait to see that Freeze.
Yeah, he's getting the band back together. That's for sure. The thing that look, they're going to be. He's building it very similar, and that's why Auburn fans and like Auburn, like I was talking about, is a very similar place that Ole Miss was because they had gone so many, multiple years below expectations. And so Auburn fans are hungry for a winner, right? And that's how it was at Ole Miss when Hugh got there. And he's building it very similar, okay, to what we did at Ole Miss. And he went and got the receivers, right? And the same thing we did. We went and got Laquan Treadwell, went and got those guys. And he's starting, and then he's working on the big boys. And then we're building inside out. And then, we started with Bo Wallace at quarterback, okay?
Yeah.
And Bo was one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. Bo was not. We signed him at Arkansas State. I mean, he was a Group of 5 talent out of high school, but was the toughest competitor and ran the offense. If Peyton Thorne, and this is probably a little bit of insight on Auburn here, I understand the offense. I called the offense in games, so I understand what the reads are and where the Peyton Thorne really. It wasn't just the pass plays and ball placement. He struggled last year a lot of times with run reads. And got into some bad and some negative plays by making bad decisions. And I think a year, especially with Derek being there, Coach Derek Nix, Derek obviously understands the offense as good as anybody. So he's been in it a long time. So I think those things, adding those voices, similar voices in the reads and what you're wanting out of that position and that offense, the quarterback has to have the same mindset and has to be thinking the same as Freeze and Nix, right? Because it's not so much in that offense. You don't have to be uberly talented. Now, if the more talented you are, obviously it helps.
Yeah.
But you have to make the right decisions. And so on every play, there may be 5 different choices on a single play to do. Okay. And which one are you? And so those decisions will change post snap on what you're to do with the ball. So you may come into a play and be able to see, hey, I'm looking at the alignment. I'm going here with the ball snap, things move. And all of a sudden I got to change and do this option. Like you have to be that guy at quarterback in that offense to be successful. And I think like Bo Wallace was unbelievable at that. We had a guy at Arkansas State named Ryan Applin that was unbelievable at that. There was a guy at Ole Miss named Chad Kelly that was unbelievable at that.
Yeah.
That's what made those teams good was the quarterback, not how talented they were, but how smart they were to get you in the right play and keep you out of negative plays. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but there's a legendary coach. There's a movie Invincible, Dick Vermeil. And Dick Vermeil said, in an NFL game, if you could have 52 plays in an NFL game that went forward, he never lost a game. Not explosive plays, just did not lose yards and went forward. And that's staying on schedule and staying out of negative plays. And last year, too many times in games, I thought Peyton made incorrect decisions that put Auburn behind the chains. Another year in the system, he will get better at that. I think having one voice,
and receivers that can get separation.
Well, and it's not, but that's another thing, right? Is it's not necessarily about. I mean, you can make plays without. I mean, if you throw the back shoulder ball, or if you have to, it's not about getting separation. It's about getting receivers that win the 50-50 ball. We watched the SEC, right? How many receivers run by guys in this league?
Not too many.
That many.
Anthony Schwartz a few years ago.
Yeah. Oh, but he's stiff. He can run. It's like Tennessee, right? Tennessee runs all vertical routes, but if they just ran all verticals straight ahead, they're not running by anybody. They had to do switches and mess the coverages up and all those things. You got to have guys that make contested catches in this league. You got to have guys that win in this league, in the SEC.
Yeah, move the chain.
On the other side. If Auburn's playing Monroe every week, they can run by guys, but they're not playing Monroe every week. All right, they're playing the SEC, and you got to have guys that make contested catches. You got to have guys that win 50-50 balls. They have that now.
And then in game planning, you've got to be smart about is our receiver better than their corner this week? Not all season long, but for particular games, and build the plan accordingly.
Well, you can fix that formation. That's the thing is you can fix that coaching wise formationally that he'll do. The problem is they had nobody. It's about making contested catches and winning 50-50 balls. If you got a run play called and they're playing man free and they're loading the box and they've outnumbered you in the box and they're playing press man over there, you have to go recruit a guy that if they're in press man is going to win the 50-50 ball. All right. And so you have to throw it, and you have to be a threat to throw it. And that's the thing is, and if you don't have a guy that can win, now you're again behind the chains. And so you go hit an explosive play or two, they'll back up, and then they'll start going too high. Then we can start running the ball. And so
Tyler,
there's so many things to it.
Yeah, didn't mean to interrupt. There's a couple of questions here that have come in. One, and I'm going to throw this one because Frank LSU, but Bo Davis, defensive line coach, leaving Texas and going to LSU. Huge. Didn't the day he announced he was going from Texas to LSU, was that about the same time when Nick Saban left? Because we know how important he was at Alabama. Number two, Tennessee question. The Vols have maybe one of the top 1, 2, or 3 guys that probably come off the board on draft day. James Pierce, the edge rusher. And then Nico Iamaleava, I think I got it right. Let's talk about that. I got a lot of Tennessee fans. A lot of these guys text because they're driving and listening or watching the show, so they can't put the comments in. So I'm trying to relay them. But in a nutshell, talk about Heupel, that Tennessee offense. You talked about it a second ago. And Iamaleava, we saw him in the Iowa game, and I don't know if that's fair or unfair, but the expectations for that guy with his NIL deal are off the chain.
Yeah, starting at LSU, LSU has, in my opinion, probably 2 of the top 5 defensive line coaches in the last 20 years, with Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples. Kevin Peoples is also at LSU. I've worked with both of them. I worked with Kevin Peoples all the way back at Northwestern State to Arkansas State. Wow. I've been with him a long time. And Kevin probably, he was at Missouri before that. Kevin probably doesn't get he doesn't get the credit he deserves. His proteges, Trey Scott at Georgia was RGA. So he even trains coaches, right? So Trey Scott, who's Georgia's defensive line coach, who's considered one of the top D-line coaches in the country, was Kevin's GA. So Kevin is an unbelievable coach. Obviously, he was at Missouri last year. You saw what they did up front. Everywhere he goes, he was at Arkansas with Petrino, back when they were really good. Like everywhere he goes, they have a great D-line. Then on top of that, you're throwing Bo Davis. And then, Bo at Alabama, Bo's unbelievable. They have probably
huge upgrade.
Yeah. I'd say the top 3 D-line coaches in the SEC, LSU's got 2 of them. Yeah. And now they got to go get some players. I think
we're very thin on the defensive line right now.
They're thin right now. But I can tell you this: whoever they roll out there, they will be well coached and they will be really good. So that's like the catch-22, right? They're going, whatever they have, they're going to be like everybody's throwing LSU like, oh, they got questions up front. Well, I can tell you this: the 3 or 4 that line up out there, depending on what set they're in, they're going to be really good. They're going to be well coached, and they're going to be. You can't coach them any better. That's getting done at LSU.
Going back to Pete Jenkins' days, there's not a more important LSU coach than our defensive line coach.
So both of those guys are Pete's guys, right? So Pete trained Peeps, and so you're a Peep. I call him Peeps is his nickname, Coach Peoples. He's a Pete guy. Has always been a Pete guy. Same thing with Trey. All these guys, all these great D-line coaches that we're talking about are all Pete Jenkins guys, right? Yep. And when Pete did his camp down, I think it was in Thibodeau, he did his camp every year.
Yeah.
And so he, all those are his guys. So I think, LSU is going to be, look, I won't say the same thing I say about LSU every year. Look, they're going to have players. I'm a big believer in Brian Kelly. And I think he's a fantastic coach. I think LSU is going to be more fun. Tennessee, I think Tennessee's going to be good. We're in a league that's like, I think LSU.
Good.
Yeah, I think LSU, in my opinion, I think LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss, those 3 schools in particular, there's going to be this battle, and they're going to be up there. Like those are 3 teams, in my opinion, that are probably just a little bit above Missouri. But Missouri's schedule and what they have, it'll be hard for Missouri not to be 10-2. I think, now unless they just unless something happens,
like losing to Auburn at home,
losing guys. Brady Cook gets hurt. Knock on wood. I don't ever want to see that to a kid. But I got 2 buddies up there too with Jacob Peeler and Corey Batoon, the new defensive coordinator. They're going to be well coached. They got a great schedule. But unless whoever decided to, they'll be fine, but I don't know who's scheduled going to UMass from Missouri. I don't know who did that. They're doing somebody a favor on the schedule. I guess the AD came from UMass or something. I don't know. But anyway, but no, I think Tennessee is going to be really good. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be great on defense. Very similar to Oklahoma here, right? And it's funny that they play each other the first SEC weekend. Is you got two teams that have two really uberly talented young quarterbacks that are both going to be really good on defense. And so I will go ahead. I don't know what the under is in that game, but I would take the under in the Tennessee-Oklahoma game because you're going to have two SEC freshman quarterback, basically, or SEC freshman experienced quarterbacks playing in a game against two great defenses for their first SEC start. And so whatever the under is in that game, take the under. I will bet that whatever week that is, that's already a lock in. September 21st, I'm taking the under and the whatever it is. I don't care if it's 5. I'm taking the under in that game. But they're very similar to Oklahoma to where they're both going to be good on defense. They got to allow time for their young guys to get experience. And experience usually comes in the fashion, and they make the right decisions a lot of times. It's not a decision thing. It's more about getting the ball out on time and trusting the pocket and being comfortable with their footwork in the pocket because, look, you don't got a lot of time to throw it, and you're not going to have a lot of time to throw it when you're playing Oklahoma in that first game.
That's right. Can't have happy feet.
Tyler, I feel allegiance to Rob's great Bama listeners to this show who, if I can read minds, I think they too would be very disappointed if DeBoer doesn't get them to the 12-team playoff this year. There might be a segment that's, lost their mind like most of us SEC fans and expects a 12-0 regular season. Then there's reality. So give it, first year for Kalen DeBoer. He's got players. Saban didn't leave anything bare. But what would be a realistic outlook for Crimson Tide fans, do you think, Tyler?
Realistic, 9-3, 10-2. Anything better than that, be happy.
That might get you in the playoff.
10-2 will get you in the playoff. In this league, 10-2. Like if you have a 10-2 Missouri and a 10-2 in Alabama, and you got to decide between the two, I can tell you who's going. Because they'll have recency bias, right? But
correct.
And schedule, and then actually. It'll be solved on the field because Missouri's got to go to Alabama. I put that as, matter of fact, yesterday we did Missouri's schedule, and I put that as Missouri's most important game because if they go to Tuscaloosa and they lose, let's say they go 10-2 and they lose in Tuscaloosa, okay, they really don't. I mean, what Texas A&M or Oklahoma, and that's saying what's their best win. If they lose to Alabama and Oklahoma, their best win would be Texas A&M. They will not. They have to. That's an important game because
it's a signature win.
If there's a debate between 10 and 2 teams, they have to. They're going to have to figure that part out.
And
you got to have a big pelt. Yeah,
I'm going to put a place card here. I could easily see this happening. That a team, it could be Alabama. They win the Iron Bowl and move to 10-2, and your reward for that, very possibly, is you get to a rematch with Georgia in the Benz. And you really don't want to have to go play that because you probably already sewn up a playoff spot, right?
Yeah. The best, we were joking about this. This will have been Monday on our show. We were half joking, but I wasn't really joking. You're going to get in a situation. Look, there's playoffs are awesome, right? I don't think anybody's going to argue that. And this is going to be, and they're talking about expanding the playoff, right? They want to get to more teams and all this stuff. Okay. And I always have this saying, and this is where I'm at with college football right now, is be careful what you wish for because
you might get it.
Okay. Well, the NFL is the greatest sports organization in the world. Okay. And I think they do it the right way. And we're going to get in a situation to where it will happen. It may happen this year. Okay. But we're going to get in a situation to where let's say for kicks and giggles that Georgia's 11-0. Okay, they've already sealed up the SEC championship game bid, and they got to play Georgia Tech at the end of the season. Carson Beck's a little dinged up. You know what happens in the NFL?
You don't play them.
They sit him. Yeah,
that's
right.
You're gonna start seeing teams that have their conference championship locked up. If you already won 11 games, you're in the playoff. Okay, the only game that matters to you is the championship game because if you win, you get the bye. You're going to have rivalry games at the end of the season
Yeah.
that they sit players. Okay.
Screw Georgia Tech.
What if Alabama? Think about this world. Now, I grew up in Alabama. You're in Birmingham. You're an Auburn guy. Rob, you're an Auburn guy.
Yeah.
Think about a world, and this is possible. Okay. This is not out of the realm of possibilities this year. Let's say, because I think Alabama's going to be good too. I'm a big believer in Caleb DeBoer and that staff. I'm biased here. I've coached with just about everybody on the defensive staff there. What if Alabama was 11-0 in the Iron Bowl, and they don't? And they sit about 15 players, and they lose. And they lose.
Shit ain't happening. Not in the Iron. You think so?
I'm with Tyler.
100%. It's going to happen.
Wow.
Well, we are semi-pro now. I think we all have to acknowledge that.
Wow.
But that's what I'm saying is the fans are going to lose their mind.
Wow.
Throw an Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
And, well, they're not throwing it. They're going to try to win the game. But Jalen Milroe not play. You know, he was banged up this past year. What if Jalen Milroe doesn't play? He's banged up. We're 11-0. Hey, Georgia and Alabama are already set in the SEC championship game next week. And you're 11-0, and Georgia's 11-1 or whatever, 10-1 going into the last game, and that game's already set. Do you think they're going? You think they're going to play guys, or they're going to rest guys that are banged up? 100% they're going to rest them.
Yeah, Tyler, this is something I promise you. In the '93 Auburn season, we're on the way to Athens. Road trip, 5 of us in a customized van back in the that thing was awesome. And we had this conversation in '93. Said, man, if we had a playoff at this point in the season, could you imagine Auburn and Georgia sitting some starters? And we've talked about this. Doug has talked about it. Frank, I have on this Friday roundtable. I'm with you. I think we're at that point, and I think Alabama sometimes, if you look. They look at the national picture where Auburn wants to win the Iron Bowl more than they do almost. It's crazy, but I'm with Doug. I think dogs and cats living together. I think the Mississippi River runs dry. I can't imagine because the Iron Bowl, I remarried. I've all for life. My whole family's Auburn, and my oldest, now she's an Alabama grad. I mean, and she was there when the tornado hit, in April 27th of 2011. Audrey drove over the next day and said, that's the first time I realized a 100-foot tall oak tree has 100 feet of roots. That's what an F5 tornado can do. And got a lot of friends in Tuscaloosa, May Veterinary Clinic. If you've ever had a dog or a cat, you probably took them there. But, man, Tyler, first off, we got to wrap it up. We didn't mean to keep you so long, but
you're good.
We normally go
going late as soon as we're done, so I'm good.
I just want to tell you, and I know these guys want to say goodbye too, but thank you. We got to do this again. And we're building this network, SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU, and these shows, Buddy Martin Show, Best Fridays in Football with Urban Meyer and Buddy Martin. You are welcome anytime, and let us know, how people can follow you and your podcast. And but thank you a million, and to all of our sponsors for this doing it. But
great
appreciate you guys. Yeah, so I do a show with Neil McCready called McCready and Siskey. It is on the MPW Digital YouTube network. You can follow us on. We actually made our debut on Twitter yesterday, so it worked. So we're doing streaming across all platforms. Social media has been real good to us, so you can follow us on Twitter at McCready and Siskey podcast. Also, I guess the one that's been the best to us is TikTok. So we've gained we're right at, I think we're at 28 or 29,000 followers on TikTok. And my main man Cole, our producer, he clips all the stuff from the show, puts it on there. But Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, if you follow us there, and then we go live Mondays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central. And then when we get back, we're actually taking a 2-week hiatus. I'm leaving to go to the lake, so this is probably where I'm not a great podcaster and great promoter, because when the show, for whatever reason on TikTok, our stuff has kind of blown up the last 6 or 7 weeks, and we're kind of running hot right now. And I said, that's a great time to take a vacation.
So please give us a retweet. Please give us a retweet. If we'll do the same thing for you. But I love this. I mean, there's only 71 days till we start college football season.
Ready to go.
That's 1,000. Actually, that's 1,704 hours if anybody's keeping track.
Wow.
Rob, as one of your advisors, Rob, I suggest strongly that you move Tyler up to the A+ group. His football IQ is off the chart.
Yeah, Tyler, we're
Appreciate you
serious.
guys.
Yeah, look, man, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Go out and help people, do great things, find excuses to win. We'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.